Hey there, future mathematicians. Are you ready to explore the fascinating world of fractions? Today we're diving into the world of fractions, but not just any fractions, equivalent fractions. These are fractions that might look different but actually represent the same amount. Imagine fractions as puzzle pieces. Each piece might look different, but when you put them together they can form the same picture. Now you might be thinking, equivalent, what in the pizza is that? Well, let's break it down with a delicious example. Imagine a delicious pizza cut into 2 equal slices. You get one slice, which is half the pizza, right? That's 1/2. Now let's say we cut the same pizza into 4 equal slices instead of 2. This time you get 2 slices. That's 2/4 of the pizza. Notice something cool? Even though the number of slices changed, the amount of pizza you have is still the same. This is the magic of equivalent fractions. They might look different, but they represent the same quantity. So 1/2 and 2/4 are just 2 ways of saying the same thing. You still got the same amount of pizza. You see, fractions are like a universal language for parts of a whole. They help us understand and compare different quantities. 1/2 and 2/4 represent the same amount, just written differently. This concept is super important in math and everyday life. That's what makes them equivalent fractions. They look different but have the same value. So next time you see fractions, remember they might just be different pieces of the same puzzle. So, how do we find these magical equivalent fractions? It's simpler than you might think. It's like building with blocks. Just as you can stack blocks in different ways to make the same height, you can create equivalent fractions by multiplying or dividing. Let's take our trusty 1/2 again. This fraction is a great starting point. To find an equivalent fraction, we multiply both the top number, the numerator, and the bottom number, the denominator, by the same number. This keeps the value of the fraction the same. Let's multiply both parts of 1/2 by 2. This means we take 1 times 2 and 2 times 2, 1 times 2 equals 2, and 2 times 2 equals 4. So 1/2 becomes 2/4. See? We get 2/4, which we already know is equivalent to 1/2. This shows how fractions can look different but represent the same value. You can use any number, like 3, to find another equivalent fraction. For example, multiplying 1/2 by 3. Or you can use 4, or even 10, to create different equivalent fractions. The key is consistency. As long as you multiply both the top and bottom by the same number, the fractions will be equivalent. This is a fundamental rule in understanding fractions. Sometimes we find ourselves with fractions that are a bit cluttered, like 4/8. It might look a bit overwhelming at first, but don't worry. Simplifying fractions is easier than you think. Both the top and bottom numbers are even, so we can simplify them. This means we can make the fraction smaller and easier to understand. It's like tidying up your room. The space stays the same, but everything looks neater. When you simplify a fraction, the value doesn't change, but it looks much cleaner and is easier to work with. To simplify, we find the biggest number that divides evenly into both the top and bottom. This number is called a common divisor. The greatest common divisor, or GCD, is the largest number that can divide both the numerator and the denominator without leaving a remainder. For 4/8, the GCD is 4. This means 4 is the largest number that can divide both 4 and 8 evenly. Dividing both parts by 4, we get 4 divided by 4 equals 1. This step reduces the numerator to its simplest form, and 8 divided by 4 equals 2. This step reduces the denominator to its simplest form. So 4/8 simplifies to 1/2. See, much cleaner. Now the fraction is easier to read and understand. Simplifying fractions helps in making calculations simpler and more intuitive. Section 4. Why do we even need equivalent fractions? You might ask, why bother with all this equivalent fraction business? Well, they're super helpful when we add, subtract, or compare fractions. Imagine trying to add 1/3 of a chocolate bar and 2/6 of another bar. It's like speaking different chocolate languages. But, wait, we know 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. Now we're speaking the same language and can easily add them. 2/6 plus 2/6 equals 4/6. See? Equivalent fractions make our lives so much easier. Section 5. Now you try. Ready to flex your fraction muscles? I've got a challenge for you. Can you find an equivalent fraction for 3/5 by multiplying both parts by 2? Give it a go, and share your answer in the comments below. Remember, keep those fraction skills sharp, and I'll see you next time for more exciting math adventures.